Yeah, so I think I'd like to start by thanking someone specifically, and that's because they really helped me have a laugh and start tonight with a bit more confidence, and that's Robert. And that's because, as a good friend, he's come up with an emergency distraction plan for me, because he knows it's my first talk, and if I get a bit anxious or something goes wrong, he's going to come up with a. I don't know if he's comfortable with me saying it, but I think he will forgive me if I do. All right, I won't say it then, but it's definitely going to be very distracting if it does happen, and he's gone so far with it that I do think there's really value in my life, because I'm making friends so sort of committed and generous in trying to do things and to help me. So it feels really good. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Yeah. He might want to confess to it sometime and tell us all what it was, but I'll leave that up to him. So so lately in this theme, we've been looking at the Bodhicaryavatara. The themes, it really hangs together, so I would recommend to people who've not seen the last 2 weeks' talks to actually go and watch them as well. So I think there's a lot of benefit to come from that, and it makes a lot more sense with tonight's talk as well. So the Bodhicaryavatara is translated as the guide to the path of awakening, to enlightenment, and it's a very, very popular, very known sort of Buddhist book. And the Dalai Lama said to read this book every day. And it's very, very well known. And it's trying to inspire and motivate us to be a bodhisattva, And in a way, that's it can be hard to describe what a bodhisattva is. And in a very simple, short way, because you could say it's somebody in which the bodhicitta has arisen. But I don't find that particularly explanatory and helpful. So what I've come across is a little list of aspirations that a bodhisattva would have, somebody with the bodhicitta has arisen and would have. And I think that gives a really good sense of what a bodhisattva is. So what we're trying to do, what this book is trying to guide us towards. And so a bodhisattva would think and would act out of these desires, these wishes. And it says, "May I be the doctor, may I be the nurse for all beings until the world is cured. May I be a light for those who are lost. May I be a harbor for those that need shelter. May I be a servant to beings on earth. May I become an inexhaustible treasure for those who are poor and destitute. May I be a protector for those without protection. May I be a guide for those who wander. May I be a boat for those who long for the other shore. May I be a lamp for those who need light. May I be a wish-fulfilling jewel for all beings. And may I become that which maintains all beings." So this is, to me, it gives a much more of a sense of what a bodhisattva is and how a bodhisattva would live, and what the qualities and the values of a bodhisattva are. So this book is trying to guide us in that direction, help us move in that direction, and more and more become like a bodhisattva. And the book itself was written by Shantideva, so we've heard a bit about this. And then he used to live in a sort of monastic university a very long time ago, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So he lived a very different life to us in Nalanda. And in a way, the way he communicates can come across, express a bit of that. And there's a lot of stories about how he wrote this book and how it came about. And it involves things about him levitating and floating at the end of it, and disappearing into the space. But I think how I kind of make sense of it is in a bit like he took the roof off. He took the roof off how people thought, how people practiced. He just really brought things to a whole new level. And I think this book, if you do get to read through it yourselves as well, and through the talks, gives you an idea about his level of commitment and achievements. So in the first few weeks, we've looked at another Buddhist list, called the Vinayas. And this is like a guide to how to succeed, how to make anything happen, how to get things done. And there's a succession of mental states that are necessary so we can be successful, we can get anything done. And in a way, if we reflect on things we've been successful with, it's this list will sort of, we would realize that we've come through this list. We've actually applied this list. Yeah. So there is a tradition beginning, I think, and probably starts with Subhuti about the examples of the things we could achieve with this list. And one's if we want to rob a bank, and then the other one is pass an exam, or if we want to achieve enlightenment. So this is a new tradition that's developing, I think, as the examples we give. If you want to achieve any of these, this list still applies. So it's not just about things that we consider to be skillful. It could be anything that we want to achieve. And I was thinking if we name this theme sort of path of tantric success, and say you can achieve, how to achieve anything you want to achieve, and charge loads of money, would actually probably, make a good bit of money. I think would really get a lot of people in, because it's such a simple list in a way, and such a sort of straightforward way to actually be successful in what we want to do. Though maybe we'll end up with more bank robbers than Buddhists, but yeah, I think we'll be loaded if we did that. Yeah. So the vignettes themselves are the chanda, which is wanting, really wanting, desiring; adimoksha, deciding, wholeheartedly deciding; smriti, remembering; samadhi, focusing; and prajna, thinking, clear thinking. So tonight, again, we're going to look a bit more at adimoksha, decision. And in the first week, we heard that desire is, and like as Buddhists, we might come across desire as something bad. We're trying to get rid of desire, but actually we can turn desire onto the path. We can really find a lot of benefit that comes from desire. And in fact, if we want to really achieve anything, we've really got to work on creating that desire for that thing. So hopefully that is the bodhicitta, that is the bodhisattva ideal, that is enlightenment for us. Yeah, so it's important to really desire freedom from suffering. And it also helps us focus more on the positive things, what we want, rather than what the problems are. So it's just quite a good way of actually approaching things very positive. And adimoksha was described as a first taste or a beginning of liberation. And involves like a decision, a commitment, making a firm decision. And for us, that's a firm decision to move towards the three jewels, to value the three jewels, the ideal of Buddhism. And these need to be the most precious things. So we want to create this desire that the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, his teachings, and his Sangha, the Arya Sangha, are the most precious things in life. And when we're in touch with that sense of reverence and praise and wanting to move towards it, comes out of it naturally. And it helps us move in that direction. And one of the ways we looked at this last week is actually the sevenfold puja. So that's one way we can do this. And a sevenfold puja is like an expression of our commitment and a decision to want to become a bodhisattva. So when we're doing the sevenfold puja, it's kind of we're expressing that choice we've made and that decision we've made that we want to become bodhisattvas. And this can open us up to something higher, something bigger that we can reach, and what's best in us in a way, and what's best in the universe. And I like that Mokshitara pointed out last week about making our minds up. So we're making our minds up towards what's highest and what's best. It's a really good way of putting it. So we want the bodhicitta to manifest, to come through us. That's what we want the bodhicitta, the aspiration, desires of a bodhisattva, and surrender to that, to give ourselves up to that. And through the puja, we're basically perfuming our minds. So we're making our minds more attractive and inviting for something noble and honorable and something precious. And so in the first stage, so we go through all these stages of all these offerings of things that are beautiful, things that look beautiful, things that sound beautiful with the mantra as well, and things that smell and taste beautiful in a way as well. And maybe modern days we could like include different sort of chocolates or biscuits I think that's quite a common thing for us, and you can even pick that because that's a big part of our tradition, and I like them. I enjoy them, so why not offer it to something I consider to be noble, someone I consider to be noble. And then then we move on to a respectful greeting. So even bowing can be part of this, and it's really sort of a good thing to actually appreciate there's something more, there's something good in us that we can really surrender to, and we haven't quite got there yet, so just respectful greeting and bowing. And then there's a real movement towards this when we go for refuge to it. There's a real movement towards this ideal we've created. And in that it's kind of included the precepts, so it's how are we going to get there? How are we going to get there? And so this movement towards the three jewels as being like the safest refuges. What's lasting? What's really going to satisfy us? What's really going to end our suffering and help us do the same for others? And when we're in touch with that, the next thing comes up is a sense of confession, because we fall short of things. We're not quite there yet. And things that get in the way, and acknowledging patterns of behavior that get in the way is also quite a big part of it. It's quite important to actually acknowledge where we fall short of our ideals. And also, it's true that there are things we're good at, and there are things that are good in the world, so we do like to rejoice. We want to rejoice, and we move on to that. So all along, our mind's getting perfumed more and more, receptive and inviting to something better, something more beautiful. And then we reach a stage where, we've let go of old patterns, and we've become receptive and open, and we can invite and express our free valuing of the Dharma, and invite a teaching. So we go into entreaty and supplication. And then the sevenfold, and is transferring our merits. So we move on to being more selfless, moving beyond selfishness, and just more of an expression of interconnectedness, the wisdom of interconnectedness. So in the last few weeks, we've gone through this, and we've really developed Chanda, and we've stoked up our desire for this beautiful aspiration, the Bodhisattva ideal. And and doing the sevenfold puja is kind of getting us to decide, make that decision, and move towards becoming more like a bodhisattva. So we made that decision. We're starting to move towards that. And we want to make this happen. We want to transform ourselves. But what I find, what many of us I think find, is even with the sublime aspiration, we really make this commitment. We really want to do it. It's just a beautiful aspiration, a beautiful ideal. We want to live towards it. But we go to bed, or a few days pass, or a little challenge comes up, a little distraction comes up, and all that desire is just, it's gone, it's dissipated. That vow, that commitment is just kind of gone. And we kind of quite easily give up on that, and we change our mind, and we just find that we can't carry on anymore. And I've kind of, I think I'd say, So why this happens is something that I think everyone can remember from the introductory course, so most people can, is what we call the horse and rider. So we've got the case of the horse and rider, where the conscious part of our minds that's making the decision is the rider, and the horse being the more deeper energies we've got in our being, the coarser and the deeper, more powerful energies in our being. And as the rider, we can consciously make a decision, I'm going to go for the Bodhisattva path, this is beautiful, this is great. But quite often, the horse is not on board, and it's not particularly interested, and maybe it'll come along for a bit, but chances are he'll turn around and want to go back to the stables and look for attractive horses, or a nose bag, or I don't know, maybe look for a little argument with somebody because he's feeling a bit irritated, and he just wants to have a little argument. And another way I like looking at this is like there's different parts to ourselves. There's different aspects. There's different parts to ourselves, and we need to basically get integrated. What we're trying to do in our spiritual life is get integrated. So we're a bundle of selves, and there's a lot of inner conflict. And like for me, there's a part of me that really wants to grow, really wants to take on new challenges and grow. So I said, I'll do a Sangha night talk. I'm going to do it. And there's a part of me that is not very happy about that. it doesn't like the bit of me that likes challenges and new things and growing. And as the week's gone and as the days approached, I've just been trying to manage this conflict. That's a lot of my energy's gone into managing this conflict and holding this disagreement or this rebellious horse, maybe you could say. So it's not straight away dashing for the stables, but it's not destroying my will and commitment to do this talk as well. And in that sense, it's I think very important to remember, like we can come to the Bodhisattva life, we can come to the Buddhist life. We really want to practice. We come for a while. We could be like 6 months or so. Everything's great. We're working fine. Everything's really good. And then suddenly something happens, and we just hit a bit of a difficulty, a bit of a dead end, or our desires are gone. Maybe we can't go to the Buddhist center tonight. Maybe I'll just not practice as much meditation or ethics and stuff. And it's quite important to know that's almost natural. That's almost inevitable to some extent, and we mustn't give up at that point. That's a very very common thing people come up against. They come here, everything's very exciting, everything's really good, things are changing really quick, but then we kind of reach a different level, or the horse is just it's had enough, he wants to bolt off. So it's good to keep that in mind and just actually not give up, because the spiritual life isn't easy, really. It's not easy. We definitely hit a lot of difficulties. So some ways I experience these things are like, so I want to like get up earlier in the mornings, do a bit of exercise, and then meditate. That's one of the areas I'd like to do. And then I find that I go to bed with aspiration, I wake up, and I snooze. And I snooze, and I snooze till about 5 minutes before meditation. And sometimes I'm glad that I could get up for the meditation, never mind the exercise before it. So it's this I'm going to be a bodhisattva, this is my aspiration. And I can't even be bothered to get out of bed. This is the reality of things. It's quite humbling in a way, but that's not always, but that's quite often the reality. Another thing I like doing is, or I like to introduce to my routine, is doing nothing, like just for a few hours every week, do nothing. But I find that when the time comes, when there is a bit of space, I can think of something else to do. It's amazing. I can always think of something else to do, whether it's good or bad. Yeah, and maybe you experience that if you've been on retreats and you come back from retreat thinking, I'm going to carry on this routine. It's really good. This simple life is really pleasurable. It's really good for me. And within days, that can just dissolve away and we're back into our old habits. So this is the horse and rider in that sense. We make our decisions based on the rider as us, and then the horse is not on board. It's not quite as committed to what we want to commit to yet. So there is Shantadeva's version of this and how he puts it. So I'll read how he puts this situation, how he describes it. So he says, I am somehow led back towards those same old lower states of being. I seem to have no will about this, as though I were under a spell. What is going on here? What is driving me? What is it that lives inside me? It says, in the case of some decisions which are rash and not properly thought out, it might be right to have second thoughts. But why should I back out of a commitment that has been thought through and approved by the wisdom of the Buddhas, and even by me for what that's worth? So he's really, I just really like the words he puts it in, especially when he's talking about what is driving me. So last week I had this dream again, which I realized I've had before. And in my dream, I'm sat behind in the back seat of a car. So there's nobody driving the car, and nobody's kind of forced me into it, but I am in the back seat of a car and it's going. And I'm in this dithering state of like, well, I should probably get to the front, to the driver's seat, and maybe, it's not. That'll take some effort. And in my dreams, I'm just in this state. And the last one, it was kind of heading for a T-junction. So it's like, I really should get in the front seat. And it's just really, it's a dream. You can interpret it any way you like, but I kind of find it in this way quite appropriate that, what is driving me? So there's something that's kind of making me do things that, well, the horse in a way is doing things that I didn't decide to do. Yeah. So well, what can we do about it? So what does Shantideva do about it, and what can we do about it? That's, I suppose, the next thing we come to. What can we do about this? And the first thing Shantideva talks about in the Bodhicaryavatara is reconnecting with his chanda, with his desire. So he goes back to the beauty and the sublimity of the ideal, the bodhisattva ideal. And also, what a precious opportunity this is. Like, we live in a world where we don't have to, well, we're not in a war zone, and I don't think any of us particularly know what starving is. And, compared to most people that have lived in the world, we have really, really good conditions. And, he gets into touch with just even being a human. Being a human is a great condition, is a great opportunity. And also, if he doesn't go through with this commitment, that will cause him suffering. So if we don't go through with our commitments to actually develop and grow, and we entertain sort of unhelpful mental states and different things, it's actually going to cause us suffering. Yeah, so what he does after getting in touch with his chanda is that he appeals to his lower sort of animal energies, his animal side, or his lower energies, these more coarser energies that we have. And in this case, it will be sort of more aggression, so the warrior energies that we have in us. So he really appeals to them, and he tries to persuade his horse to take him where he wants to go by these energies, by using these energies. And in it he uses a word called kleshas, which kind of, that's making our mind up. Yeah. So he's used the word called the kleshas. So these are like negative mental states. And traditionally, you'll see in the middle of the wheel of life, there's three figures representing greed, hatred, and delusion. And those are the main kleshas that drive the wheel of life. But we can add things like envy and arrogance and resentment and sort of blame and cynicism and all these kind of things into that list of the kleshas, like these negative mental states, negative thoughts, negative emotions. And quite often it can be referred to as the defilements or moral vices, and there's different names for it. So he will be using some of these definitions. Yeah. And it's important to know that kind of the kleshas are habits we've got into. So the negative mental states, the habits we've got into, we are not the kleshas. We don't have to define ourselves by the kleshas. We don't have to identify with them, or we don't have to identify and entertain them. We can actually let go of them. We can move beyond them. We don't have to identify with them. And so I'll read how Shantideva sort of talks to his horse, maybe we could say it. And I'll say that. So he certainly is not messing about. So Shantideva is not somebody who's messing about, and he's really straightforward, and he's using a very strong language, which would have been much more apparent and relevant at the time of a warrior, of fighting, and So it's kind of his battle cry in a way against the kleshas, which we must make sure we don't identify them as being ourselves. So we're not fighting ourselves when we find the kleshas, or it's not what he's referring to. Or in a way, other people either, or other beings. So So this is what Shantideva says about it. So human enemies can't send me to hell, but my mighty enemies, the kleshas, can send me there in an instant. Human enemies become friends if we treat them kindly. But when we are kind to the kleshas, the negative mental states, they just cause us more and more suffering. I won't rest until these enemies are struck down in front of my eyes, he says. Look at worldly warriors. They are passionate to kill their enemies. They don't count the pain from blows, arrows, and spears. They won't give up until they win. And they proudly show off their wounds and scars. Why then, when I'm fighting for the great cause, for the Bodhisattva cause, when I'm trying to kill my real enemies, the real causes of all suffering, the kleshas? Why do I shy away from a little pain? Or in my case, struggle to get out of bed? I have promised to free the universe from the kleshas, but I haven't yet freed myself. When I make my commitment to the bodhicitta, I was intoxicated. I wasn't taking my limitations into account. So he wasn't taking his limitations into account. But now I can't turn back from destroying the kleshas. It doesn't get any softer, it's his song, man. So he goes, I'm going to be bloody minded about this and wage a grudge war of vengeance against the kleshas. This is the only negative emotion, so he's generous, he's sparing one. The only negative emotion I'm going to spare is the desire to murder the kleshas. I don't care if my guts spill out. I don't care if my head falls off. But I am never going to grovel to my arch enemies, the kleshas. If we defeat a human enemy, they can take refuge in another country and regroup. But where can the kleshas go if I rout them out of my mind? The kleshas are weaklings to be cowed by the glare of wisdom. They are just based on illusion. So heart, free yourself from fear and devote yourself to striving for freedom, for wisdom. So yeah, this is Shantideva taking the roof off, really. Yeah, he's just really expressing like very clearly how he is working with getting these deeper energies, these energies of anger, and with this warrior energy inside him to actually help him to fight against something that is actually causing a lot of suffering, and what's going to free him, basically. He's really working these energies to help unchain himself and others. Yeah, so with Chanda and desire, we've developed we've awakened some of these energies, some of these lower energies, this craving, wanting energies. But with anger, he really gets into more and more powerful energies. He really awakens these energies. And I was thinking, so there's other sort of energies we can work for that are the coarser basic energies that we've got. And even like a sense of being too proud to be defeated by lower mental states, negative mental states. We can use our pride in a way to help us with this as well. And like fear is another one. So I used to be depressed sort of before I came here. And I do fear sort of ending up in that state again. I would not want to end up in that state. And the fear of that is quite actually a driving force to not let the kleshas just rule me, to get into the driving seat of the car, to actually make that extra effort and not let the kleshas drive me around, basically, or at least have some control over the wheel. I could have a strong ambition to grow and develop and be the best we can be, and we can use this to sort of, walk the bodhisattva path. And like nirvana is said to be the supreme bliss, the most pleasant and pleasurable experience. So we can really use our chanda, this desire, and just move towards that, and that can really drive us, that desire to want to experience what's supreme bliss. Yeah, having said this, it's important to remember that Shantideva had a particular context and a culture that he lived in. So he lived in a monastery, which is the world's only and biggest really university at the time, a Buddhist monastic university, and his audience was like monks who lived there all their lives. So it's kind of and he used this kind of language to arouse his energies in a way. But my experience, is not so much of like hurling myself at the gates of the kleshas. So it's not kind of how I can work with the kleshas, work with negative mental states. More like a kind of a relentless chipping away at them. That's been mostly where I've got to so far. That's where I am. And then I had this image of a little yappy dog nibbling at the ankles of the kleshas, really. I think that's where I am as far as a warrior goes. I've come a long way, but that's where I am. That's so like when I'm working with lack of confidence and finding it difficult to do certain things, what's helped me is not just like going, 5 years ago saying I'm going to give a Sangha night talk, because it just wasn't going to happen. I worked with it with like, oh, I'll do a little 5 minutes here, there's an opportunity arise, a little 5 minutes there, and then just relentlessly and consistently just chipping away at these negative mental states. So eventually I got to a place where when I agreed to do it, I could manage the inner conflict that arose out of it. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, same with stopping smoking. That kind of took a while, took about a year for me to get to a point where I could stop smoking. Well, I'll say a bit more about that in a bit. Yeah, and to do more exercise and get up early in the mornings, I'm still actually working at developing more chanda, developing more desire stage. That's where I've got to. I've still got a lot of work to do before I can really call up deeper energies. And I've got a lot of respect for this, really, in a way, because I've got like one of my great pleasures, in a way, or something that really speaks to my horse or really arouses energies in me is listening to like Sufi rituals. So partly with my background and something about their rituals that really awakens a lot of warrior energy in me. And like in Turkey and the Ottomans, they used a lot of this for the militaries, actually. The military bands used a lot of this ritual, so it's not a surprise. It's kind of almost designed to bring about warrior energies. But what I realized that if I'm not careful when I arouse these energies, when I'm really feeling sort of energized to do something, it's very easy for me to go, oh, what's the next one? And then the next one, oh, I'll listen to it again. So it turns into greed and craving. So he loses his aim. I lose the positive, the skillful aim. Or sometimes I just feel like I want to fight almost. It can really get. So if I'm not careful, I can start thinking of people, politicians, and whatever, and just really want to like fight them. And Shantideva doesn't have that problem. So he's developed enough that he can arouse all these energies to his fullest extent and use them for the cause, use them in a skillful way. And personally, I'm not there yet. I can see that in my own experience, but yeah, I'm moving in that direction. So it's important to arouse these energies and make sure we can use them in a positive sense. But having said that, it's really important as well that we don't want to shy away from these energies. Like if we're really going to really do something about changing the world, having an effect on the world and changing ourselves, like really fundamentally, we really need these energies. We really need to be able to engage these energies, bring them out, and then let them help us on the cause of changing. Yeah. So yeah, if we're going to stop talking about helping all beings and saving all beings, then we're actually really going to do something about it. We need these energies, and we really need to integrate them. And then I got a sense of like the image of instead of the horse and rider, eventually what we want to be is more like a centaur, so in the Greek myths. So we want to even move from that. We just want to actually be one with these energies and be able to really guide them in skillful ways. Yeah. I had this conversation with somebody once and came up with a phrase that I really liked, and it's based around being a horse whisperer. So I don't know if people come across that. Like apparently there's two ways you can really like befriend or domesticate a horse, and one is really breaking them harshly, just breaking their whole will, and another is like being more of a horse whisperer and just gently speaking their language, so they become your friend rather than your servant kind of thing. And from that came out the phrase, the heart whisperer. So that's what we're trying to be in a way as well. So we want to be firm with our hearts and our sort of our minds, but also we want to stay friends with them as well. We don't want to break it. We want to be friends with that. So when we're arousing these energies, I think it's really a good idea to choose the size of stick we're going to stir our depths with. So Shantideva's size stick, and it's probably not the best idea for all of us to get all these warrior energies up if we're not good at controlling them or directing them. So yeah, it's important to choose the right size stick. But if we don't actually stir our depths, then we won't go very far either. So we've got to find something that can be uncomfortable at times. So another way that's quite effective, I think, is personifying and objectifying these kleshas or these energies. and then it helps us act on our decision. So one thing, like one image we've got in Buddhism is Vajrapani, and many of you will know Vajrapani. In fact, I've got an image of Vajrapani here. I think the image speaks best for itself. Yeah. So this is Vajrapani, and we can imagine Vajrapani as these really coarse, deep energies we've got, really, really, really powerful energies. And it could be a really good symbol of that. And as much as it looks like something we wouldn't want to come across, it's certainly something we would like on our side if we're going to take on something difficult, something challenging. So I like this symbolism, this imagery that can really help us deal with things like arousing the warrior energies. Well, yeah, if that's on my side, I feel a lot more brave and confident. And then there's also another one, there's another personification, there's another objectification, all of our negative energies and everything that gets in the way and things that lock us down, can cause us a lot of pain and keep us trapped, really. And we can say that's Mara. So in a way, in Buddhism, we don't really have a devil and stuff, but we've got a personification of something called Mara. And we can call it the wily evil one. And quite often the Buddha would treat Mara in a friendly way, but also firm and not entertaining anything that Mara's doing. This is hello evil one. You know, when he catches him, when he notices it, when he comes into his awareness. When we're under the influence of the kleshas, we can feel like we are possessed by them. So we can get a sense of being possessed by these kleshas, by these negative mental states, like really led by them, really all our decisions made by them, or really influenced by them. And it feels like this is coming from the outside. Like this possession, this thing's coming from the outside. And when we're able to sort of like label it or objectify it in a way like Mara, it can really be helpful, like giving us a bit of a space and a bit of a distance from it. And that kind of makes a lot more sense of the ideal of like surrendering to the bodhicitta, to the bodhisattva ideal. Because in a way, instead of being possessed by negative mental states and surrendering to them, what we want to do is surrender our direction, giving our guidance to what's positive, what's skillful, what's good for everybody, ourselves and everybody. So we don't want to be possessed by Mara and his tricks and guided by that and ruled by that. And it can be really helpful, to put it out there as something, oh, this is not me, these mental states aren't me. They're just a way Mara uses to trick me into doing things that cause me suffering and pain, and to others as well. So I had a good example of this when I stopped smoking, actually. It took about a year to work with developing enough desire to stop smoking. And what I really remember at the end, what really made me change, really helped me to turn things around, is that I'd collected all these packets for some reason of tobacco packets. And on them it said all kinds of things, all kinds of health warnings, from teeth to lungs to I was going to say erection problems, I've said it. There was all sorts of things. But the one that really caught my attention was it says causes a slow and painful death. Now this is really strong, and this is on the tobacco packet. And I'd paid good money for this. It was not cheap stuff. And I just seemed to have no problem just rolling it up and smoking. It was really bizarre that I'd give myself kind of a painful and slow sort of death. And then I just realized that if somebody else was doing that to me, I'd be absolutely outraged. I'd be absolutely outraged about somebody else causing me this much harm. And in a way, that helped me to sort of project this side of me that kind of is in the habit of doing this outwardly into something else, somebody else, and get a lot of anger against it, actually. I don't want to do this anymore. And it gave me a lot of power, really. A lot of the power that helped me stop smoking came from that realization that I could project the bits of me that are in the habit of smoking or causing myself harm and damage as being kind of Mara or something out there, something separate. So it can be a really effective way of actually working with these negative mental states, just giving them a name and looking at them as something different to us. It's not us. So what Shantideva is going to war with is not Shantideva himself, is not part of him, he's not hating himself in any way, he's not fighting himself in a way, he's fighting these negative mental states that cause him a lot of suffering. And I was thinking, like, if we're going to take on Mara, it's good to have a sort of an idea of a figure like Vajrapani as well. So if I'm going to take on Mara, I really want this guy on my side. And the energies he represents, I really want to bring him up. Yeah, and what I was thinking, it really, to me, like in this context especially, it really doesn't matter if Mara or Vajrapani or hell, as Shantideva used the word earlier on, if these things are real or not. It really doesn't matter if they're real and factual truths. It really doesn't matter. In this case, it's more like if we're drowning and somebody throws us, says, "Oh, catch this life jacket." It's like arguing, no, that's not a life jacket. That's a buoyancy aid. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if Mara and Vajrapani are real or factual or not. It really doesn't matter. That's not the point, in a way. That's not the point. Let's not argue about the metaphysics and all the stuff of that. If this objectification, personification sort of thing helps you, if it frees you, if it's beneficial to you, then just try it and use it, Yeah, that's how I try to look at it rather than trying to resolve the issue. Another thing I think I'd mention is that, I'm certainly not strong enough to win every battle against every negative mental state. I can't win every battle against Mara. I can't always stop or control or prevent it or turn it into a positive thing. So it's really important that I choose which battles I fight. So which battles I fight that I can stay persistent and carry on in the war against these negative mental states, against the kleshas in a way. And that takes some nous as well, knowing what battles we can fight and when to really dig our heels in and when to just go, okay, this is not the most skillful thing, but I've got to give into it a bit. Otherwise, we can really not give up after a while. We can really find ourselves hammered by Mara, I suppose. Yeah, it's quite a powerful opponent, these negative mental states. Yeah, so this image I got, and I think people have talked about it before, is like what I wanted to do is develop a spiritual toolkit. So I want to develop a spiritual toolkit. And part of that kit is going to be some gentle tools, some really gentle tools. And including self-metta. So we have to be able to do self-metta, be kind to ourselves. But part of that toolkit, we really, really need to have like a big hammer. We really need Thor's hammer in there as well, because there's times when we really need to use those energies, really need to be able to engage and control and develop those energies to help us. We can't go through the whole spiritual life just being very gentle and soft. And we need those sort of red-blooded energies, we could call, like these coarser and base energies we've got. So it's important to learn to develop the skills of directing them so we don't hit ourselves on the thumb or hit somebody else with these hammers. So that's quite important. And so I was also thinking of somebody most of us know. So we want to develop the Padma side and the Vajra side, and most of you know Padma Vajra, and it's just a beautiful, balanced person in a way. So we want the gentle, soft side, but we also want the direct, the tough, the hard, the warrior side as well. And Padma Vajra, who's our president and comes here twice a year, he's a very good example, actually. He's named by both these contrasts in a way, you could say, but in him, they're kind of married happily. And I could say like Shantideva says, so in a point of rejoicing, really, that the kleshas are something in our minds. So our greatest enemy, our greatest problem is actually in our minds. So we don't have to march across the whole world to go and fight somebody. We can actually, it's there, we can at all times. we don't have to chase and run around and include other people in it. We can actually work on our greatest enemy ourselves. We've got this opportunity. It's great. So, I'll finish by saying we don't have to give up. We don't have to give up. We can carry on. We can keep fighting. Let's not give up. And with the right toolkit, we can develop the right key to free ourselves and help others free themselves as well. So we've got that opportunity. We've got that possibility, and stirring our depths and awakening these really strong, powerful energies are a great tool for doing that. So we can actually really commit to getting up in the morning and get up in the morning and do exercise or come back from retreat and just keep the lifestyle or some of the habits we get into and carry on, or anything else we've aspired to, we can actually go on with them because we've got these strong energies behind us. That's it, really. Thank you. Thank you. That's plenty.